Hi, my name is Gene Monterastelli, and the video you are about to watch is a recording from the 24 Hours of Tapping, which is an event that is held annually to support the Peaceful Heart Network. If you appreciate or learn anything from this video, the easiest way for you to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network, who has worked with over 300,000 migrants, immigrants, prisoners, folks in disaster areas by bringing tapping to them. As you watch the video, across the bottom, you will see a link where you can support their amazing work. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. Lindsay Lewis is a certified master tapping practitioner and transformational guide for self-led women who are ready to break free from burnout and finally feel like themselves again. With her signature mix of EFT, somatic healing, and spiritual insight, Lindsay makes emotional wellness feel lighter, doable, and even fun. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Lindsay Lewis. Hi, Lindsay.
Thank you. That was such a fun introduction.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear. Everything is perfect.
Good. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I know not everyone can clap so we can hear them, but I want everyone to really give you a round of applause for doing this because it's impressive.
Well, there's a very fine line between righteous and stupid, and we might have blown back that dramatically in all of this, but we are here and we are
bold or naive earlier. So
that's right. Absolutely. Both of those things simultaneously.
Yeah.
So I know you've been hanging around and I've seen you in the chat box. You've been engaging in all this. You're not going to be surprised by this. But, the first question I'm asking everybody is, why is nervous system regulation and anxiety and that sort of stuff, why is that something that is at the front of your mind, the front of your heart, the front of your work? Why is that something that's significant for you?
Because it's my experience with
Yeah.
it's my story. And I know that's the case for a lot of practitioners, but
Which is great.
Well, I shared with you a little bit. I just came through
Yeah.
a really intense season, and I would love to share some of it just to encourage people. But I was born and raised in a Christian home and Christian family, and it wasn't extreme. And I ended up in a season of my life back in my late 20s, and I was chronically anxious, chronically depressed, and I was doing all the things, I knew to pray and I believed that God could heal people. And nothing was working, just nothing at all. I went to therapy and it really backfired on me. I think there's great therapists, but it really was unsuccessful for me.
Mhm.
And so I ended up on anti-anxiety meds. Those didn't help me at all. I ended up drinking to cope. And a Christian mentor actually reached out to me, and she's always wanting to help the women get better, And
Mhm.
she said, I know you're having a hard time. I learned this new technique. Will you be my guinea pig? And I trusted her with my life.
Mhm.
And I said, sure, let's do it. And so she she knew my story and she went with the tell the story technique. And so she kind
Mhm.
of had me tell it. Well, I was I was ugly crying. Like you've never seen an ugly person cry as hard as I was crying. And then she started having me tap on these points. And I thought to myself, she's lost her mind.
Mhm.
Like she's tried one tool too many because I don't know what she's doing. It just felt so weird to be tapping on my face and I'm crying and I'm already telling her something she already knows. And what I was saying in my sob was I was grieving. I had lost a lot of relationships and a good friend. And I said, it's so sad and there's nothing I can do about it. And I don't think we tapped more than 7 minutes. And I wasn't crying anymore, and crying's not a bad thing,
Mhm.
but you and I both know I was reliving it like it had just happened, and it had been 3 or 5 years earlier. And I remember taking this breath, and she said, "Tell me that story again." And I said, "It is so sad, but there is nothing I can do about it." And that was the moment that I realized that whatever tap-in was worked.
Mhm.
And, and what I really want to emphasize about that is because, all these conversations have been absolutely incredible, just really incredible conversations. And I agree with all of it. What had changed for me though is that I was so full of I don't want to call it negative energy, but grief and depression and anxiety,
Mhm.
that when I saw things that I knew should make me happy or that should fill me with joy, like my children, or a sunset, I didn't feel anything.
Mhm.
And that wasn't generally how I rolled. And what I noticed that afternoon when I picked up my kids from school is I saw them really clearly and I could hear their voices clearly and I felt their joy and their presence. So not only did so much of that grief, and I understand now that tapping wires things or rewires things back into the time and place they actually happened so that we're not reliving them. And what I learned is that I was reliving that over and over and over. And that day, that event finally got filed in its proper place. And my body actually had the energy to see and feel the things that were in front of me that I wanted to see and feel. That everyone here wants to see and feel joy and goodness and peace.
Mhm.
And so I got real mad at God because
Mhm.
he didn't know me. And I didn't know how to be a good, you know, Christian anymore because I wasn't going to be able to tell people to just pray about it. I was going to have to tell people to tap on their face about it.
Yep.
And so I had a good wrestling match with him over the course of a few months. And ultimately, um, and being, a lot of us have been a part of institutions, right? Whether it's a school system or church system, belief systems, is mine was that God is not energy. Energy was a woo-woo word. And this energy thing worked. And I was at a crux and a crisis. And I needed to understand why it worked better than God. And so I basically just dove right into learning about tapping, like a lot of us do. And I needed to understand why it worked. I really needed to understand it. And what I learned is that if he had just healed me, then I would have just gone on my merry way and told everyone to pray about it. But he actually equipped me with a tool and to hand women to help heal themselves. And so I learned a lot about the body. I learned a lot about the energy system. I didn't know that we had fear-based thoughts and love-based thoughts and our brains actually wired. I didn't know any of this stuff. It was all so weird to me. And anyway, God and I are cool again. And that's a lot of my client base is actually people who feel injured by school systems, church systems, want to believe God's good and just can't because of life circumstances. And I learned that he created our bodies to work like this and in a way such as this, where we don't have, we have more stress and information being thrown at us than any of our ancestors did. So I just learned and I wanted to be able to hand it to other women because we all know those church leaders are telling the same story over and over and over. And I was one of them. And my story stopped that day. It just stopped.
I
So
as you're telling that story, there was a movie in the late '90s starring Robert Duvall called The Apostle, and he was a big tent revival preacher traveling around the South, and the only image that I have of that movie, he's in this upstairs bedroom of this house, and he's just like, "That's right, we're fighting right
yeah,
now," you know, and that's such a I think that's such an honest place to be coming from. One of the things that did full time ministry for 25 years, and um, one of the things I always struggled with in many of those places is the way that people treated faith like no. And when I say no, KONW, like this isn't an article of faith. This is a statement of fact. And when we're dealing with something as big as the supernatural and how that engages with our life, if we're only dealing in absolutes when it is hard for us to grasp something that is eternal, we're immediately going to find our way into friction, and we're going to find our way to be either suppressing things or completely revolting from those things. That it's so hard for us to find a way into nuance, and that anxiety, and that's our internal guidance system going, something is a little off right here. And it's hard when we don't have the vocabulary to even talk about that in a way that is acceptable. Like I spend a lot of time with safe, allowed, worthy, and deserve. And I've come to this realization that allowed is just safety and context. Am I safe to do this? Am I going to die? Am I going to be eaten by the big grizzly thing? Allowed is, if I violate this, I'm pushed outside of the tribe, which then puts me in front of the big grizzly thing with the giant teeth in front of it. And so
Yeah.
it just becomes this, I'm not allowed to do this as a safety mechanism because there's a part of me that refuses to leave the tribe because leaving the tribe is death.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it makes those conversations and navigating that very, very difficult when we don't have the vocabulary or the tools or the whatever to engage with that
And I
particular
didn't,
thing.
and I thought, "I can't believe this is real." And then, I
Yep.
went through the whole spiral, like, what if I had had this when I was 9? What if I'd had this when I was
Right.
17? And what was cool though is Stefan, I think was his name,
Stefan.
talking about Stefan, the law of attraction is really interesting because like I wasn't sure if that was true or not until just a couple months ago. And it's so interesting because looking back, there was friction because
Mhm.
there's like the letter of the law and then the spirit of the law. And I'm more
Mhm.
spirit of the law now. I understand that now, but there's the religiosity and the rigidity. And that's what I noticed that it was the Christians. I don't want to put everyone in a box, but
Yep.
really pushing against it. But what was so cool is that I actually had the tool of tapping now in order
Mhm.
to regulate my little system around all these questions I was having. And so I then found that I don't know if I was attracting, but I was aware of so many people who believed what I believed, that God's good. And also that he's energy and he breathed and there was life. And so I found my people. He spoke and there was. And that was what was so cool. And so I just knew like the church needs real healing. And I thought I was gonna go in there and like sneak in and maybe like as women were telling me there's that repeat story that they were on,
Yep.
for 20 years, I would just have them maybe like just tap on the side of their hand for a second. And I didn't plan on it being a business at all.
Mhm.
And it blew up. I ended up full time booked out 6 months because women were hungry for something that worked. And it was working. It was working when nothing else was. And that's what my experience was with it too. And it was actually helping to restore their relationships with their creator, their belief system, their, relationships. So it's a pretty powerful tool. And I still think it's weird.
Because it is. Like
Mhm.
I mean, it is weird. Like it is unreasonable to think thumping on my face is going to change my brain. Like that.
Yeah.
That's weird. And it's okay that we acknowledge that as we step into it.
Yeah.
What was the line? Surprise, surprise is nothing more than our measure of how reasonable the outcome is.
Oh,
Like we're in circuit. Like I like I wander around the streets of New York City. I see things that I am unsurprised by, and my friends are visiting me and they see those things and they can't believe that they're happening on a street corner in New York City, because surprise is nothing more than a measure of expectation. I love being in New York City because I can talk to myself and tap on a street corner and I'm the ninth weirdest thing there and nobody notices at all, because again, what's normal inside of that? So
yeah.
as you're navigating this, like one of the things that I have like been giving a lot of thought to and structuring my work around is like, personally, I'm done with teaching. I teach people new tools, but I'm unconcerned about teaching people new tools. I am more concerned about creating spaces and circumstances for integration where we're actually using the things that we know. I'm done being a method collector. I actually want to, like, I want 5 things that work and I'm going to use them all the time. And that's the thing I need to do. And, and so looking through that lens and having lots of conversations with all sorts of people, trying to figure out the best way to serve people, the place that I've landed, rightly or wrongly, is we know something is wrong. We know tapping is a tool that is very powerful. And I can't get past that step of inertia because I don't know the right thing to stay or the right place to start or the thing. And because, like you said, this is weird. So now I'm doing something that's weird, but I am uncertain of what to say in response to this. And even though I'm tapping by myself, I don't want to be foolish and I wander away.
Yeah.
So, with that as a preface, the women you've been serving as you're dealing with regulating the system, anxiety, stuff like that, Not what is the process. We can talk about more stuff. What's the entry point? What's the question? What's the reframe? What's the notice? What's the like? One of the things that I love about the Peaceful Heart Network's content-free tapping is notice and tap. Okay, I can do that. I can follow Winky along. I can look at the little app. I can just hit the points and I can just notice. Great. We now have an entry point. What are the entry points for someone who knows something is off? I have a tool. What do I do?
So I always recommend a private session,
Mhm.
really, to anyone listening. And the reason I recommend that is for the same reason you would, is
Mhm.
because to have an expert guide you so you can be in your uh, conscious mind and
Mhm.
kind of in your heart while your be in your subconscious while we are kind of, I always say we're like the blow up things on the side of a bowling alley,
Yep.
like they just need to roll the ball and we're going to keep them in here because you're going to get a wild experience working with a private practitioner because like the founders said, I wrote it down and I wish I could find where I wrote it down, but you called it something and it was like, we've been taught to be so specific with tapping that we end up failing because we don't know what to say, which is I know
Yep.
what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So I think that's why private sessions are so special because you do get such profound shifts while someone else is holding space for you. So I think that's important and I have to say that. But
Mhm.
we're here, right, to help people just start doing this.
Yep.
And my entry point is with chronic illness, especially being so big and nervous
Mhm.
system regulation being such a trend word, there's an industry wrapped around it now to keep selling and selling modalities
Mhm.
and selling things. We have a tool that's at the tip of our fingers 24 hours a day. So when a woman feels anxious or dysregulated or in pain, physical, emotional, the first thing I have them learn to do is just feel it and start tapping. And that's it. Just feel it and start tapping. Now, we might still have some people here who are like, yeah, but what are the tapping points? I don't remember them. Um, you know, I I'll share at the end, if you remind me what my favorite move is for
Mhm.
everyone to I really want everyone to kind of walk away with it. But if you can just remember one tapping point and just feel what you're feeling and just be brave enough to pause and sit in it and feel it for just maybe 3 breaths, for a couple
Mhm.
seconds. We've been taught to be so afraid of our feelings, so afraid of anxiety, so afraid of a new diagnosis, and I understand that, but our body's speaking to us, and it loves us more than we can possibly imagine, and I always say it's like when something's nagging at us, it's like having a toddler at your feet while you're trying to do a
Mhm.
chore, and they're nagging and they're nagging and they're nagging. They're like, "Mom, mom, 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 mom," for half an hour. And you look at the toddler and you say, "What?" And they go, "Hi," and they run off. And
Mhm.
it's like our body is just constantly sending us these signals. They're like, "Listen, listen, listen. I'm trying to love you. I'm trying to help you." But we're trained to like hate the anxiety, run, shove, tuck, avoid the fear. And so if we can just even if you think tapping is weird, and even if you're like, no, I don't want to feel this anxiety at all. I already feel it. If you can just be brave enough to close your eyes, take a couple breaths, just tap at the only point you can remember and stay there. Just stay there as long as you have a bathroom break, if you have to run from the kids, or if it's just 3 breaths, something's going to change. And I joke with my girls, I lead a group, but I say 800 things are running in the background while you do that. Your mind and your body have been begging you to listen for so long. It's all at the surface. And if you can learn to sit and pause and breathe and tap for a second, your body's connecting dots and shifting and moving things that you might never know it's shifting and moving. We talked about it where
Yeah.
someone's intake form was like, he's like, "Oh, I was lying," right? Or I
Yeah.
exaggerated that. It's like, well, it's called the apex effect, I think,
Right.
right? We're like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." It's like, no, because you got better. So that's the thing is I would say, I know we've got a lot of people who want information here and they're getting the best information available. This is a really incredible panel you have. But application. Tapping is never going to work for you if you don't apply it. And the very best way is if you're doubting it, If you have any resistance, if you have any triggers, put it to the test. Put it to the
Well,
test. And we're hacking our stress. When do we ever get to say, oh, I feel this anxiety. I'm going to use it now to my greatest benefit. Tap on it, clear this garbage from the past, and then to actually not like I did. I wasn't depressed or anxious anymore, but the goal isn't just to get rid of the depression or the anxiety or the illness. It's actually to live happy and healthy and free and bold and authentic. So just by taking a few minutes and learning to sit still and breathe, it's really all you got to do.
and I love what you're saying that like you're talking the example of the toddler. For me, it's always the example I always give is the 5-year-old in the back seat doing the exact same thing. And you go, yes, and they go windmill. And they're like, yes, windmill. Because and the way I like to phrase it is fully articulated emotions are short-lived. And we're giving ourselves permission to just lean into that. And I think that like, again, because we're trained to be specific. And part of what we think of being, we're trained to be as specific as possible, which we mistake for be specific. And what you're talking about, where I'm just like, this is what I'm feeling right now. That's specific. Like that is actually specific. I am just acknowledging where I am in this particular moment and just going, oh, anxiety, I hear you, I understand. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, there's this decompression that comes along with that particular thing. The other thing that just crossed my mind as you were talking about people resisting doing this stuff, on more than 10 occasions, I've worked with people who have been resistant to tap, but they're willing to tap on their resistance to tapping.
Yep.
Like in that moment, because they're not resisting tapping. They're resisting what I'm going to discover, what's on the other side. What if this doesn't work for me? One time I had a client say to me, I haven't tapped yet because tapping is my last hope. And if this doesn't work, I no longer have hope.
Yeah.
Like that's a coherent story that makes sense. That's going to keep someone stuck in that particular way.
Yeah.
And when we give ourselves permission not to tap on the thing, but to tap on, I'm afraid this is my last hope. And if I'm able to melt or make that proportionate, then that next step is possible. This is going to look dumb and stupid to go, I'm afraid this looks really dumb and stupid because this is dumb and stupid. Why am I thumping on my face? What we're really doing is whatever's going on in the system, we're tuned into that particular thing and we get there.
Well, yeah, and it's the thing is somebody can say, I want to work on my anxiety or I want to work on this or I want to work on that. But if they come in and they think tapping's weird,
Yeah.
then the anxiety is on hold. And that's the beautiful thing about tapping. And that's where we want to encourage everybody to just stop and just tap, put it to the
Mhm.
test,
Yeah.
because if someone walks in and they're nervous for any reason, just like you said, the best part of this is you said 30% of your job or something is validating the human experience.
Yep.
And
Gene's favorite made up stat, 37% of my job is
I
normalizing
also have
human
made up stats.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and that's exactly it, is that this is the greatest gift that tapping ever gave me. And it's given me so many gifts is the ability for time to stand still
Mm.
and to actually not just try to be present, but I feel more present in every single moment than I ever had in my life. And if it was Chris saying she has ADHD and she's self-diagnosed, and I didn't learn that I was until the last couple of years. It's rough out here, and so to actually find something, a client recently said to me, she said, I don't know what I would have done without this tool. And I can't believe it's literally just making me sit still and remember to breathe.
Yeah.
And her life's been changed. She has the biggest trauma of any type of client I have. She's had the biggest movement
Yeah.
in the shortest amount of time because she has learned to sit and tap and breathe. And so that's exactly it, is we sit with whatever it is right here, right now, in this second, because this is the present. And if you're resisting something or nervous to tap, I've tapped with all kinds of people on the resistance to tapping. And it's so fun because just right there, we're validating how they feel. And that's what this is all about, is if someone's nervous system doesn't feel safe, they're not going to shift. So for people to know, like, oh, it's okay to question this. Even Lindsay and Jean still think it's weird to tap on their faces. I'm not alone. Other people feel this way. All the fight or flight's gone. And then we can move on
And
the anxiety.
yeah, well, and the other piece of it is, so I think of tapping not, I think of tapping as a tool, not as an approach. And there are multiple approaches to tapping. And in the middle of the day, the primary mode of tapping that I do is emotional first aid. Like it's just, and the way I describe it is I am just putting myself back into my body. Like that's it. Like I'm just like years and years ago, I was studying with a medical intuitive by the name of Catherine Poole, who did a lot of work and like what she her energetic experience, her brain had taught her to translate it through her visual cortex. And she taught this color theory at Notre Dame, and like so it wasn't just this field thing. Like she created this heads up display, and she did a lot of work with kids with Down syndrome and adults with dementia. And she when she was working with little kids with ADHD who were all over the place, she literally just like when she was talking to them very kindly, just put her hand on the top of their head, and she literally said, and I was just putting them back into their body,
Uh-huh.
because this energy was just literally just like spilling out of them all over the place, and not like forcing it, clamping it down, but just kind of gently and kindly. And that phrase has just stuck with me so much, of
Yeah.
just like going, that's all I'm doing in the moment is like I'm particularly in this digital world where I am like looking at the screen, which represents all of these things all over the place, and it's magical. Like you and I
Mhm.
would not know each other if it wasn't for this magical technology that allows us to have conversations like this, and we have people all over the world joining us. Like that's not a bad thing, but it's not an embodied experience.
Right.
And taking a moment to, like I've always described Iceland as my spiritual homeland, because the moment I step off of the plane, like roots just grow out of the bottom of my feet when I'm on that land, where the geography is providing that for me. As I'm
Right.
sitting here in the middle of the day, just taking 60 seconds and doing that creates a space of regulation.
Well, I think that there's so much dysregulation just in the world we're living in, and like you
Yeah.
said, with digital stuff, and then we've got all this chronic illness, and then we've got the way that our brain, just remembers or recalls something, rewires it, and rewires it like it's happening all over again, and we're so used to trying to think our way out of things,
Mhm.
and making our mind or our body the enemy. Like, I wish I wasn't feeling this, or I wasn't thinking this. This is literally you don't have to strategize at all. Just stop and tap. You just stop and tap. You're driving down the road and someone cuts you off and your heart rate goes up. Hack that. Just breathe and just pick any point and just breathe. You don't have to strategize at all. You're just using your fingertips, you're using your energy system, and the thing is, cortisol is also a big hype word, right? But that's because it it adds fat, right? In the weight loss world, right? Cortisol is like, well, that's where you get the belly or whatever. So women love hearing cortisol, but cortisol, we need it sometimes, but we don't need as much as we get. And so this is, if we could see what our body's actually doing, we're physically, like, or physiologically reducing our cortisol in our bodies. Like, you don't have to think about going to the gym or think about eating a certain way. If your cortisol is down, your nervous system is regulated. You can think clearly. You can
And,
strategize.
Well, and it even goes
Wait.
further than that. Conversation we're going to have later with Dawson Church, that was pre-recorded. He talks about not only does that happen, but it actually lengthens the telomeres on our cells. So it's not just like the cortisol is going. It's like you're talking about before. Like one of the things I think often, like those of us basic training, we learn a SUD scale, subjective unit of distress. I've always loved SU scale, subjective units of experience.
Okay.
And the SU scale goes from a -10 to a +10. And so it was like you're talking about before. It's not just the diminishing of, it's not that I am now stress free. That's a 0.
Right.
Well, what does a +6 look like? It looks expansive. It looks creative. And when I'm standing at a -7, I can't see a +6. I might only be able to see to a -2. But as I'm working my way to it, it's not just about this idea of I'm stopping the bad thing,
Yeah.
but I am now creating the capacity for the nourishing, the rich, the growth thing that comes on the other side of that.
Well, and I'm a testament to this too. Like, I think that I remember feeling hopeless. I remember feeling hopeless and depressed and anxious, and just feeling like nothing's gonna work. And I don't know what it is that they say about death, divorce, and moving. like the 3 most stressful things, something like that. Anyway, but when I look at, sometimes healing or, whatever our journey or getting to the other side or whatever, it takes a lot longer than we
Yeah.
think it's going to. And earlier someone said, don't focus so much on the journey that you miss the transformation or something. It was really neat. But it's really incredible the actual day and week that this falls on for me personally.
Hmm.
And when with what you're talking about, I remember being so chronically stuffed full of um, uncomfortable and painful feelings and
Yeah.
experiences. And all of that got moved out. And someone close to me said, things can prepare us or propel us. And I think that tapping does both.
Hmm.
I think it prepares us. It moves things out. It creates some space. We can think about a future fear,
Yeah.
concern, wrap our brain around it and strategize, but it also is going to help propel us. And we do have to take action, right? But it
Yeah.
actually helps us take action in a way we never have. Well, I never really got any calm after that season.
Yeah.
COVID happened. Life
Yeah.
kind of was crazy and got crazy, but I was still using my tool. I was still using tapping and learning it, and I teach by doing it myself and being an
Yep.
example. And then every year was like consecutively harder and harder. And I'm like, when are we going to get out of this? When are we going to get out of this crazy cycle? And right when I thought our whole life came together back in October, like everything came full circle. Our prodigal son is home and there's going to, be all this magic. And I was like, we did it. We got to this side. And since then, I've lost multiple people. I've gone through divorce. I never thought I'd go through that ever. And we moved off of our forever property. It was 3 acres and 5 buildings. And um, is so wild is that because of the work that I did when I found tapping like 9 years ago or so, I can't tell you a time I felt anxious during this season, like any of the last 8 years, really, unless it was real anxiety actually telling me I needed to like get on top of something, to do
Right.
something, the good kind that make friends with. And then this last season of like so much loss, divorce, it's very amicable. We're good friends, but it's still a hard thing to do, especially when you're good friends. You're losing a friend. And this move was so intense. I have more memories of laughing and being present and having fun and feeling connected with my ex-husband, with my friends, with family than ever in my life. And this is the kind of stuff that if people don't do their work, it compounds and compounds and compounds. The depression gets worse, the anxiety gets worse, you just get more clogged up. But for me to come to a place where I kept thinking life was going to get better and it got worse and worse to the point of this like total destruction,
Hmm.
and I have more joy than ever and more peace than ever. I'm more present than ever. And it's not to say those things haven't been hard, because they were, but I journeyed through every single bit of it with a clear mind, an open heart, a regulated nervous system. And I was actually allowed to enjoy the really beautiful things of life at the same time, because there's really beautiful things and we miss out on those when we let our system be clogged with only the hard stuff. We're all
So
worthy of feeling a lot of joy.
yeah, you had mentioned early on you wanted to make sure you shared one thing before we got out of here. We got 5 minutes left. I don't want to be in a rush, so I want to make sure that we're grabbing that thing that you wanted to
You
share.
know what? I kind of did. I want to encourage everybody, just not be afraid and to really hack your system. And I call it the press and hold. I know there's so many different techniques.
Mhm.
But I tell people, if you can't remember a tapping point, just test this throughout your night tonight or your day tomorrow. To As you're journeying through your day, anything that causes you to pause, anything that's a trigger or like a that's weird or a sound, no matter how much you love your kids, when they're screaming in the background, it's irritating. Just stop and press and hold this point right here. I think this is the point that that was the original founding point of tapping, if I'm correct, with,
So Callahan's
yes,
experience was that she was experiencing nausea in her stomach with fear, and he knew that this was related to the stomach meridian,
right.
and so it was basically stomach. Chinese medicine says stomach meridian. That's the reason why I
Yeah.
chose that particular
But I
area.
love that one because it's anxiety and fear. And
Mhm.
so I just say, "Hey, I'm dealing with anxious women. Everyone has fear." So I just press and hold, breathe a few times, and then keep going through your day. And anything that trips you up, press and hold, breathe. And you're gonna notice you're doing that less and less over time, and you're just hacking your stress. But joy, I want to like really emphasize that everyone here is worthy of so much joy and so much peace, and to actually feel gratitude no matter their hard circumstances in life. And this is, I tried so many tools because I wanted to believe anything was better than tapping because tapping looked weird. And I still land on it every single time. It's going to be your best friend, and it's going to clear this stuff out. And really, we only live once, we
And
got to,
yeah, and to reinforce some stuff that David Feinstein shared with us earlier, just to reinforce this press and hold, like the stimulus is the thing that is important. It's not the tapping. The tapping, you know, tapping was introduced because it is a gross movement that is easy to do. And when I say gross, I mean not disgusting, but not fine. Like it's not a fine motor skill. It's a gross motor skill because we're just going there. And like for me, forever, this has generally been a touch point, not a tapping point, because I spent decades with sinus issues. And so that was super, super tender for me. I'm on the other
um,
side of a lot of those things.
and
Done
I
some
always
really,
say it's the points when someone's like talking to you and you're annoyed and you can kind of just do this and
oh
nobody
yeah,
knows.
yeah,
So the press and hold's great because especially if you're skeptical, press and hold the points. You don't have to tap them.
that's right. Yeah.
So I just want to
And
encourage stuff.
yeah, yeah, it just makes it super easy. Awesomeness.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Lindsay, yeah, go ahead. You're going to share something?
Well, I know everybody kind of already knows there's freebies, but I'm just going to be brave and I'm going to throw this out there. You got me super motivated because of this fundraiser and what it's all about. And so I went ahead and I just put out on my Instagram, for every $10 donated, I'm going to do a raffle. People can win a free session for every $10 they donate with me, just to kind of try to push some of my
Awesome.
people to donate a little more. So I just wanted to share that. I do have a few freebies and raffles things that are going to come out in that email. But thank you so much for linking arms with an incredible cause and bringing all these people together. It's an
You
honor to be a
bet.
part of.
Awesome. Thanks for your time. And I look forward to talking to you real soon, my friend.
Thanks. Have a good one. Good luck.
You bet.
Bye.
Awesomeness. Excellent. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. As you look at the screen right now, you can see a link to the entire playlist of every single conversation for previous 24 hours of tapping. There are over 120 presentations waiting for you. And please consider supporting the amazing work of the Peaceful Heart Network.